So, like in keeping with mom grew up, we were surrounded by corruption. I mean, let's face it, DC is a place where people are paid to defile themselves. And so, mom had to live through all this. And she kept us on the straight and narrow. I mean, the rod was taken to me, man. I'm not going to lie. I don't call it abuse. I mean, abuse is out there, abuse is the system. And people taking advantage of each other. It's sort of like you pay for it now or later. And nobody wants, well, sadists would, but it's like some people, they enjoy the pain, not me. I'd rather enjoy the vacation. But I labored. I mean, you're talking starting work at 5 years old, 4 years old. 4 years old, the story goes that I lost my train of thought on the last one was like I told everybody I don't want to stay at home. I can be where the big kids were. At home was, the ladies and they were talking to each other and I learned a lot from them. I learned how to sew, take in my own clothes. My mom taught me how to pick out patterns, ask me what patterns I liked. I'd stand beside her, learn how to thread the sewing machine. I was working machinery at 5, 6, 7 years old, not actually engaged in the operation of the machine itself, but the preparation. And eventually got to the operation, of course. I know how to work an old sewing machine to this day because of what my mom taught me. So it's sort of like I can make my own clothes right now. I could design them. I could draw out the pattern. I could take a blank piece of paper and make an outfit. I was doing that. I put together an outfit for a show in fifth grade. Went down, found the shirt, found the pants, uh, put it together. Kids laughed at me on stage, but I wrote, directed, and starred in my own production in fifth grade. It was about drug dealing and taking drugs and passing out and dying from it, and warning everyone about it. I had to do it for school. Uh, I was talking about that as in an earlier video. How as children we had to present ourselves to adults presentably, speak to adults mannerly, address folks with respect. Nowadays, you disrespect someone on the street or in jail, and the climate in Washington, D.C. is mob rule. So you have to negotiate. And that was not unfamiliar. I had to negotiate to get to school, negotiate at school, negotiate to get home, and negotiate at home. I mean, everything was a negotiation. I had to negotiate with the drunk to get off my door. I had to negotiate with a friend of mine's uncle who put an 18-inch butcher knife at my throat at 14, 13 years old to rob me. And I didn't figure out till later it was a setup. He said he had pneumonia or something, couldn't collect for his paper route. And he and his brother both had paper routes and were stealing the money from the paper company. And so I volunteered to go collect his paper route for him. I hadn't even gotten started. I was on like my fifth house when his uncle jumped out from behind the bushes and put a butcher knife that was 18 inches long at my throat and started going through my pockets. And I'm like, I know this guy's not wearing a mask or anything. I mean, we're in the dark. And he was already high. And I got this guy's uncle. I don't even know how old he was at the time. I think he might have been 20 or something. This guy's going through my pockets holding this knife in my throat. And the thing is that my mom had put me in martial arts. It was like I saw this ad for Junri Institute of Taekwondo. It's like $19.50 for karate class. I was like, I'm on. And I went there with my 1950 and it was contractual. You had to sign up for a few months or something like that. So that totally shot me to pieces. But my grandmother helped me out with it with the rest. because I was thrifty. I mean, I was working. And I ended up taking martial arts. So I was like a gold belt or something at the time. And I had been going to class and studying, and I was going for my green belt test or something. And here's my friend's uncle trying to rob me for their heroin money. And I'm like, it's me, man. It's me. And he's like, shut up. And he's going through my pocket. So I put my arm between his arm and my throat and pushed it away and got the knife off my throat. And I turned around, I grabbed him by his sleeve and I threw him in front of me. And I fell backwards. Lost my balance, fell down on the ground. So I started side kicking him from the ground. The guy grabs my foot and starts trying to tussle with me. And someone comes out of the apartment building. And it's like, what's going on? Because we made enough noise out there. I mean, I was doing the hi, hi. When I was kicking, they taught us to scream when we kick. So people are coming. This man comes out the door, and this guy starts walking up the street. And I go chasing after, and I'm standing right beside this guy walking up the street with a butcher knife folded up against his forearm now, holding it by the butt so that it's not dangling. And I'm like, dude, don't you even recognize me? I don't know if he knew who I was or not, but I'm negotiating. So, I mean, there's that. I mean, negotiating to get to school through guys that are like, give me some money, and you're saying I don't have any, and you're wearing a tie. You're wearing, you're business casual with a shirt at 13, 14 years old, and you're walking to school, and here comes this kid dressed like he just came out of a fight, and he wants your money, and you have to negotiate that. Then you have to negotiate when you go to school. Why did you get a D minus on your this? And you're standing up in the middle of a classroom, and everybody's looking at you, waiting for you to answer. And if you piss yourself, you're out of luck. You'll never stop hearing it for the rest of your life. I bet you, if I saw people from back then, they still bring up stuff, faults, embarrassment stuff, taunting and abuse and embarrassment. There's fine lines to it. People don't handle it well these days. I mean, they come to school and they kill everybody. Man, that stuff was happening everywhere I went. And it's like, I don't know, calling people out in public is a community thing. I mean, my community was a zoo. I mean, you name it, it was there. I knew kids that were 12 years old that were prostitutes, but on their own. I know some that didn't. There's this one kid, I don't remember the exact story, but there were some horror stories. There's this one kid when he was little, his parents did something to him, and this kid walks around, he can't talk, he just makes noises. But I saw him one time. He put a quarter in the mail, in the newspaper box slot. And you know how people just take out one paper? He'd take out the whole stack and then go sell them. I mean, who would have thunk? This kid's walking around with an armful of free newspapers that he paid he invested a quarter in, and he stole somebody's property, and he's walking around the city with an armful of newspapers, giggling and mumbling to himself. And he's got to go home with a pocket full of money. It only cost him a quarter. I mean, I saw that. But if you looked for it, like for me, I saw gold in the sea. There was stories about, come to America, the streets are paved with gold. Well, at 5 years old, I saw gold in the streets because I was collecting recycling soda bottles. I was cleaning house. If I had had a little bit more sense of books, bookkeeping, and stuff like that, I'd have been rich beyond my wildest dreams. But I was spending the money as fast as I could get it. Mom could have taught me that, but she wasn't around. She was too busy working to provide us for a living. But she taught me how to sew and to put my own clothes together, to answer for myself, to step up for myself, to stand for myself. I mean, there's a lot of phenomenon in this woman, and it shows in the way she does, because she's independent of it. She's independent of everything. She was independent of us. She just wished she had my energy, because then she said she could have gotten a lot more done, and she could have, because for the life of me, all she did was go to work and come home to combatants. And when she started coming home to broken furniture and stuff, because I had to walk over my brother to get out of the house, because he wanted, 3 years old, 3 years older, go figure. I mean, some brothers get along, some are like that, like Greece and all those stories you hear, chasing each other down. I mean, look at the kings, man. They were trying to kill each other over mountains of rubble. We get back to DC and the Egyptology, and there are people here that will prostitute themselves. They will pervert themselves for notes of legal tender that are redeemable for lawful money at any Federal Reserve bank, and are uh, legal for all debts, public and private. I mean, you just give them a note and say, "Here, man, here's a bunch of these. Do what I want you to do." And they're like, "Yeah, sure. Now I can go out and buy a Jag and a house, give me some girls, get some clothes and stuff." They'll prostitute themselves. I mean, you come to DC, man, it's like soft underbelly. Everybody's legs are sitting wide open, their arms are open, their mouths open. It's like babies in a crib. You give these dudes some notes, aka money, dollar bills, all that stuff. I mean, look at this place. The Most of the stuff that's ours is not ours anymore. And we tried the administrative remedy. We went to the courts and everything. The judges were corrupting themselves for these people. I mean, look at that. They're eating each other alive right now because there's no more of us. We don't have anything now. There's nothing left. They took it all. So now they got to take it from each other. And they put it in their cave and they decorate the shelf. And look, I got this from such and such and so and so. Ain't that great? And it's like, yeah, you got a bunch of junk in your toy box, in your crib. They call them cribs. Come on, get real. It's like, this is my crib. Who has a crib? A baby that needs to be contained. You know, these babies need to be contained. I mean, look at them. They're all over the place. It's like, we'll give you this if you do this. And it's like, well, I don't know, man. I'm trying to be moral and decent here. It's like, come on. Okay, we'll give you double this, triple this. They were like, okay. And they're gone, off to the races. And then you got all this administration in the way. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. He's not in his office. Or, oh, I'm sorry. Uh, we we assume no responsibility. He's an independent agent. It's like you cut these people all the way down to the inner sanctum, man, and you find the snake eating its tail, and it gets up to the head, and all it can do is flip itself inside out. I mean, where do you go?